almost suffocating. I was such an emo teenager that I was like, this is a blueprint. Everyone sucks in this and you deserve this suffering. And I'm like, damn. I will be enjoying this classical Gothic literature with my vape and my beer. Hello, my fellow readers. Welcome to a reading vlog, and I'm going to be doing my first reading vlog where I am focusing on a single classic. I had every intentions of reading The Winter of Our Discontent for my classic for the month, and no one told me that it wasn't a book set in winter. Even though it's gorgeous weather at this point in California, I should have read this like over Christmas, New Year's, when it was absolutely cloudy, dreadful, stormy every single day. I digress. I have read Wuthering Heights, this exact copy that I have had since I was probably 16. These are like the original Barnes & Noble classics that I love. I bought this back when these paperbacks retailed for $5.95. You can see this copy has seen some love. This was before I was like really into reading. I was a reader as a child and young teenager, but once I kind of moved, past high school reading and such, I really wasn't picking up a book ever. So now I'm really looking forward to revisiting this. As a woman in my mid-30s, as someone who reads 50 plus books a year and who really kind of knows my style more, and I love the gothic, tragic, yearning sadness. I have said it before, I love my romances with sadness and despair and tragedy. It just feels so much more real to me. I really don't enjoy like the corny modern take on romance. This arguably isn't a romance book, but we'll get there later. We'll get there. So if you guys are reading this along with me, let me know in the comments if you are looking forward to the adaptation. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't go to the movies anymore, but I did see that the director of the new adaptation mentioned how the movie title is in quotes, and I thought that was really interesting. And I have two conflicting kind of thoughts about that. One, I love that. Like, I love the self-awareness of being like, you're never gonna be able to make a Wuthering Heights like a book. Like, it's not going to ever be the same, especially not when you put two popular Hollywood actors in it. You're never going to get that same feeling, in my opinion, that same authenticity. But then on the other hand, I feel like it's also kind of a cop-out to like do whatever you want with it and not stay true to the story. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to take my time with this, slowly read it. I want to sit down and read it in chunks and chat about my thoughts. I'm hoping that I can kind of mark this up, tab it potentially. I'm honestly very excited because, like I said, I've started and stopped this again in my kind of later life because I absolutely loved this, and I thought this was like insane when I read this as like a teenager. I was such an emo teenager that I was like, this is a blueprint. Like, this is what being a reader is. I'm not reading Twilight, I'm reading Wuthering Heights. And now look at me. I'm in the process of reading Twilight for the first time ever at 34. So, full circle moment. So it's been a while since I read this. This edition has a genealogy page, and I'm gonna have to dog ear this because I'm already so confused. I know it's like, you have to ask yourself why an author would make so many names the same, specifically Catherine, like one of the main characters. So there's two Catherines people are marrying cousins as they do in these time periods. I am sure that I will be referencing this quite a lot. The young lady, Mrs. Heathcliff, is his widow, meaning Heathcliff's son's wife, because she's living at the house with Heathcliff. She is my late master's daughter. Catherine Linton was her maiden name. So Heathcliff's lover's name is Catherine, and his son also married a Catherine Linton, but now her name was Catherine Heathcliff. Hello, friends. I'm sorry if you hear some traffic noise, but it is such a gorgeous day outside that I could not help but open the window. All the windows in the house are open, and you know, it's much needed because we're talking about Wuthering Heights, and this is almost suffocating. I read quite a bit just straight, and I was so just enamored by it. And I also have to say, I'm just loving reading this physical copy. I just think they're absolutely perfect. They have that really thick, yellow, nice paper. Oh, it just feels so good in my hand. And I am just tabbing up little things here and there. I'm not doing like a tabbing system. I'm not color coding things. First thoughts are, there are things about this that are really coming back to me. And even just having read this, I don't know, probably what, 20 years ago now, there are things I just am still remembering. And one of those things being that everyone sucks in this, and that's kind of like a general consensus. Most people agree that all these people are terrible. And really, this is a book about like toxicity in both like traditional English, British kind of, you know, high society of relationships, of family dynamics, of like gender roles, and you know, how men handle their anger. Those things are all kind of sticking out to me as I am first reading this. Basically, it's a lot of like Heathcliff background of him as a child and why he does end up being this just super morose, harsh person, because he was treated so terribly as a child from the family that took him in. You know, the man that took him in really wasn't around for his whole life and wasn't able to really advocate for him the way that he really should have. So he really suffered the consequences of that. And it's just so sad. There are some parts where I'm just like, oh my God, you poor baby, you poor child, you're just a child. This is so unfair to you. And I don't know, it's just crazy to me. So right now we're at the point where they're like teenagers, Kathy and Heathcliff. And something else that kind of took me by surprise, and I didn't recall this, was that we're only like 70-80 pages into the novel when the iconic, you know, line of Kathy saying, "I love Heathcliff, and whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same." And she basically is agreeing to marry another man for status, but is spilling her guts to like the main servant woman of the house. I don't remember the technical name, what they are calling it in this time period, but she's spilling her guts to her, and she's basically being like, tell me that I was right, you know? And this old lady is like, no, you're terrible actually, and you deserve this suffering. And I'm like, damn. But the fact that only 70 pages in, we're not actually getting a lot of yearning is what I kind of thought it was and remembered. Like, you actually are starting pretty early on in the novel of her proclaiming her love for Heathcliff. But really, I feel like you didn't get a lot of reason why that was, other than the fact that they just grew up together. So that part was interesting. Really makes you realize that the rest of this book is actually about toxicity, regret, vengeance, jealousy. It's not actually about their love story and how they fell in love, because you're only 70 pages in and she's like, I really love him, but I'm gonna marry someone else. And you're like, okay, not sure how you got there. Really finding that sitting down and reading this physically and just engrossing myself in the story is really helping me focus and helping me enjoy it. I did, like I said, tab the genealogy page, and I finally, after, you know, 50 so pages of it, I was like, okay, I think I got it down now. It's actually not too bad. But another thing about this book really does force you to pay attention. Like, you need to be paying attention, potentially even making notes in the beginning about who's who, And once you kind of get through the story a little bit more, it starts to be easier to follow who people are talking about because of the story structure of the way that it's being told. That makes it confusing. And then the way that Emily Bronte used so many names in such an interesting and confusing way, I think that's very intentional of making you feel very scattered when you're reading it. So yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. We're on page 90. So we'll see if we actually go watch the movie adaptation. But without a doubt, after I read this, I will be watching some like YouTube documentaries, you know, thought pieces on this. And I think that might be what I prefer to do. This, in my memory, is one of the books that I remember having such a like impactful time with reading it as a teenager. And I'm just seeing why. Okay, y'all, so I'm gonna sit down for another reading session. It's a Friday night, so as I'm sure Emily Bronte would have intended, I will be enjoying this classical Gothic literature with my vape and my beer because it's a Friday night. And this is what I'm doing. So we're gonna put on a little playlist that is 1 hour, and I'm going to leave my phone sitting over here charging because I've been having some trouble focusing. And then I'm gonna get in my reading chair, and I feel like that will be just a perfect little timer. I can just sit back and relax. Yeah, I'm not planning to have a lot of time to read tomorrow. So it's Saturday and we have plans with family. So I definitely want to get another chunk of this read. It's going slower than anticipated, but I'm also reading other things because that is just how I am. If you're new to the channel, I'm a mood reader and I always have like a physical book, a Kindle book, and an audiobook for whatever mood I'm in. And if you're curious, I just finished reading Happy Place by Emily Henry. That's going to be another reading vlog I have coming up soon. I'm enjoying this much more. Let me say that. But, you know, I have to just mix it up. That's how I work. So we have my pen. Not really sure where my tabs went. So I will find those. And we're going to do 1 hour of reading Wuthering Heights. Oh, it's on. It's on. Heathcliff is about to rip her a new one. He's about to say some shit. He's about to go off. So, update on my reading so far. I wasn't able to update last night while I was reading because my camera batteries have been giving me a lot of grief. I need to replace them, basically, is what I'm saying. But I am on page 215. We were really getting into the juicy bits here because, like I mentioned, this is going to be spoilers because this book is like, what, 200 years old almost, or something like that, 150 at this point. I don't think spoilers exist when you're talking about classic literature. That's just my opinion. But we are getting into the point where now Kathy has died. She dies like halfway through this book with such little actual interaction between her and Heathcliff, which I think is so interesting. Like, because of the narrative structure of this, like, so much of this is not actually accurate to like what Kathy and Heathcliff were really feeling, because you're getting like a story within a story with an unreliable narrator, and you're like switching kind of, you like forget, at least for me sometimes, I forget that I'm being told this by Nellie, like the servant, through her, you know, prejudices and her opinion and her judgments. And I think that's very intentional. I've obviously been watching tons of Wuthering Heights and Dracula remake kind of opinion videos because those are both just flooding my feed right now, which I think is very interesting. Which, if I can get my coherent thoughts together, I might do another, at least a couple shorts on what is being chosen to be remade and why it so heavily deters from the original source material. But I just feel like, obviously I haven't seen the movie yet. The movie is not out yet. I just feel like it's so not sexy. Margot Robbie just like did a quote where it was like, this movie is so much like bolder and more passionate and braver than the original work. And I'm like, okay, that's an odd thing to say. There's really not a lot of kissing in the book, and we're kissing everywhere in the movie. And I'm like, there's no kissing in the book. Heathcliff and Kathy never actually, well, again, it depends what you think. It depends what's assumed. You never witness them actually have a passionate moment together other than when she's on her deathbed. I'll haunt you forever. Like, oh, Heathcliff, like, don't hate me because I didn't choose you. I just find that so odd because it's like, no, they don't. They don't have, there's no sexy moments in this book at all. At all. And it's so odd that Emerald Fennell is choosing to, again, call it Wuthering Heights. And yes, she's putting it in quotes, which I appreciate. And she has gone on record to say that she's filling in the blanks. She is making the movie based on what she wishes the book would be. And I personally just find that problematic. I have seen what I need to see to make a judgment, right? Like, I personally think it's doing a disservice to the original work when you just say, when I was 14, I was imagining them fucking all over the place when that was never happening in the book. And so now I want to make a movie about it and cast two of the most popular actors of all time, completely whitewash the main character, and completely gloss over the entire point of the book. I have seen some very weird sexualization things happening, especially with Isabella, Heathcliff's wife, in this, that I find so messed up, personally. That's enough about my rant about the movie, because again, I haven't even seen it, and at this point, I just don't think I want to. Another kind of observation about this is how many references to like Satan and the devil there are in this, and how much Heathcliff himself is like compared to the devil. It's like all over this. And now we're getting into the point where it's like really not even about Kathy and Heathcliff anymore. It's just about basically the next generation and how everyone's cousins were just marrying each other, and it was all just about power and status and money and who's inheriting whose mansion. And there is so much of that obsession and like undercurrent of it's all because of these two people, really. Like all this other stuff is stemming from that main relationship, which is the point. You can do whatever you want, and I know people are gonna eat that shit up. I remember how Saltburn went. I remember how feral y'all were for that. I don't know. It's just, that puts a bad taste in my mouth. I'm excited to watch some actual like YouTube and documentary pieces about this when I'm done. The scene of Kathy on her deathbed with Heathcliff is like one of the most unhinged, deranged, feral things I've ever read in my life. Heathcliff took the locket that was around her neck. She's dead at this point, by the way. He opened it, threw out the hair that was in it, which I'm thinking was her husband's. I'm not sure. He opened it and replaced it with his own hair. Passage of when Heathcliff is returning to talk to Nellie, the servant who witnessed her death. And he basically comes in and he's like, did she talk about me? Before she died, did she mention me? Did she mention her big regret? Did she mention that she was sorry for everything she put me through, basically? May she wake as kindly in the other world, meaning like heaven. And then he's like, no, screw that. May she wake in torment. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you, haunt me then. The murdered do haunt their murderers, I believe. I know that ghosts have wandered on earth. There is a lot of like ghost talk in this as well. In Gothic, I guess that, you know, that kind of makes sense. Be with me always, take any form, drive me mad, only do not leave me in the abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. It literally goes on to say how she watched him beat his head against a tree until his skull was a bloody mess. Like, wow, that passage really got me. You know that I could as soon forget you as my existence. It is not sufficient for your infernal selfishness that while you are at peace, I shall writhe in the torments of hell. They have these like moments of like they're declaring their obsession and love for each other, like on her deathbed. But because you didn't get that really at all in the most of the book because of the narration, it's just very sudden and weird. The last thing that I will say about this is I have been having crazy deranged dreams from reading this, like where I don't really know what's happening when I awake, but I have very vivid dreams. I'm where I wake up and I look over at my fiance and I'm like, you are doing something. I'm filled with resentment and jealousy. Like it's literally worming into my subconscious. You know, what is reading if not that? Heathcliff is basically like kind of the last one standing. Kathy has died. Her brother has died. Heathcliff's wife and the mother of his child has died. It's very, you know, tuberculosis is everything. Whatever that book is. Everyone's dying. Everyone's weak. Everyone's frail. After this point, now that we're kind of in that second generation where Heathcliff is kind of our main character and he's kind of driving everything other than the narrators and Nellie and Lockwood, I think we're really going to get into more of his unhinged cruelty towards everyone else in this small group of people because he feels so slighted and he's so depressed and angry about how everything has gone. I have about 100 pages left.
Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte's masterpiece is a dark study of the wild extremes of human obsession, and my childhood heartthrob is a vicious psychopath. One of the best-selling novels of all time.
I was not quite ready to like sit down and finish this yet because I only have about like 20 pages left. I wanted to kind of watch something because like I said, I'm kind of brain rotting right now and I'm really trying to stay off my phone because all I'm doing is watching Dracula edits and crying. Let me immerse myself back into this a little bit. Let me like watch this documentary and then I will dive back into this, read the last, you know, few chapters, and then we'll do a wrap up of this video.
Falling desperation of wanting to keep the person with you.
I'm so emotionally. Whew. I think another thing that's interesting and important to note is that yes, a lot of people miscategorize this as a romance, or you know, they say it's not romantic, it's terrible, everyone in this is terrible and it's full of abuse and terrible people and things, and that is true. But I do give it credit. It was written in like the romantic style. What's the term, like the romantic period, where the romantic period was people creating art that was a direct opposition to like the industrialization of the world at the time. It was very much like focused on like progress and like technology in the time, not technology as we know it now. God, can you only imagine if that's what they were worried about then? They had no idea what was to come. But it was, you know, the romantic style that it was focused on emotion and nature and sweeping landscapes and sitting in your depression, artistic, intellectual movement, as opposed to the science and industrialization of the previous time period. So I do think that that is where a lot of the kind of romanticism of the novel comes from, because it is a romantic novel, but it's not about a romance. And it's not romantic in the sense that it's not about, you know, true love in its good parts. And it's not romantic in the way like, wow, those two people, you know, really love each other. In my opinion, they didn't love each other. My experience with the book was they were obsessed with each other and they were trauma bonded with each other. You know, maybe they did love each other, but not in a selfless, romantic, healthy, redeemable, aspirational way, you know? It is done. My first official reread of Life of Wuthering Heights. And wow, what a journey. What a journey. You can see that the tabs kind of stopped becoming as frequent halfway through the book, because I do have to say the second half of the book is a lot more mundane in my opinion to get through, because while it is just as depressing and dark and weird, it just doesn't have that same like feral energy as the first half with Kathy and Heathcliff. Again, I'm not considering any of the spoilers because this is a 200-year-old book. And if you don't want to know what happens in Wuthering Heights, like that's kind of on you at this point. Once Kathy dies, it's basically just Heathcliff abusing everyone in the family tree that he has found himself in by no decision of his own, honestly, other than, yes, marrying Isabella in a literal form of revenge and torturing her. But this is just a very unique experience. And I think understanding the context of Emily Bronte really helps to make this, really like elevates the experience of reading this, of knowing that she had originally published this under a male pen name, knowing that this type of literature was so uncommon at the time, even the fact that when like people were reading it thinking a man wrote it, they were still like, wow, this is so different and controversial and dark. And I admire her so much for this. And I will say this is a difficult read. I was definitely engaged. I was really enjoying all the time that I was reading it. Like I said, the second half got a little bit more dense and I was a little bit more like, okay, I got through the really meat of the story. I kind of know what's happening because I have read it before. I know that the second half is just kind of like the second generation and them all just being equally as terrible and just taking traits from the various, you know, people in their family and just that basically being reiterated through the another generations. Really great read. I would recommend this as a classic novel that you read at least at some point in your life. But if you are reading this because you enjoyed the movie, it's not gonna hit. It's just not. Unless you are just someone who takes things for what they are at face value and you both like classic literature and very unserious movies, which I could see that, but I don't want to be hypocritical because I'm currently in the thralls of being obsessed with the Dracula remake that just came out as well. That is not true to the source material either. I have to say, it's not. But it doesn't feel like it does such a disservice. And I don't know if that's just my, you know, picking and choosing, like picking my battles because one thing interests me more than the other. I don't know. But I feel like it really, really does a disservice to Emily Bronte to make the whole movie just basically about the first half of just basically them wanting each other and wanting to fuck. And that being it. And it's weird because Emerald Fennell really seems to love and appreciate this novel. But my issue with that is don't just actually call it Wuthering Heights then. Make your own movie. It could be inspired by Wuthering Heights. You can name them Kathy and Heathcliff for all I care. I just feel like the quotations are not enough to justify making what she has made, knowing that this exists in the scope that it does of true toxicity, true trauma bonding, abuse, like so much abuse, so much like racial prejudice. It's crazy to me that that is what came out of a woman reading this. But I digress. I really enjoyed reading it. I'm glad that I got this done. I'm glad that I finally reread this. I will also say that I'm kind of deep in the thralls of a depressive episode and I don't know if this contributed to it or if it's just all the things are kind of lining up for that to be happening right now. Because February time, I'm always very melancholy. I feel like that's kind of either you want to lean into that or if you want to avoid it entirely, that will determine if I think you should read this at this time. Like February is always super, super hard for me. And I feel like this kind of depressing book really has been like, oh my God. But at the same time, I like to live in that. I like to embrace it. I don't want to be reading like bubblegum pop romances when I myself am like, give me dread and yearning and longing and heartbreak and trauma. And that's why, like I said, I'm such in a Dracula love tale brainworm right now. And that's going to be my next vlog after this because that's all I want to read right now. But I am going to be looking for more like historical fictions, I think. I'm reading like a contemporary kind of Dracula retelling right now. And I'm liking it, but it's not hitting quite the same. I want actual gothic vibes. Like I read Dracula this last fall, so I don't want to go reread that again. I'm really enjoying the kind of gothic literature moment I'm having right now, gothic media. I feel like I'm really getting into that at the moment. That was Wuthering Heights. Please let me know in the comments. I would love to chat with you guys about this Wuthering Heights adaptation, the Dracula adaptation, if you want to get excited for a vlog for that and me yapping about that. Go ahead and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video.